A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another RPG review today. This time I'm looking at Talislanta, the Savage Land. Now this was a Kickstarter that I backed. To be perfectly honest, I had actually forgotten that I backed it, and so when it arrived it was a pleasant surprise. Now for those of you who don't know, Talislanta was a role-playing game that was first released back in, I believe, 1986. It was kind of a competitor for Dungeons and Dragons insofar as it was very rules light, but world heavy, where a lot of people saw Dungeons and Dragons as rules heavy and world light. Now, the initial concept for Talislanta, the kind of inspiration, you could say, comes from the Dying Earth series by Jack Vance, which I just happen to have a copy of and am reading and enjoying at the moment. Now, I had never heard of this series before, but it was mentioned in the introduction of this 5th edition Talislanta kind of campaign set. So I purchased the Tales of the Dying Earth anthology, and I'm reading it, and I can really see how Jack Vance was one of the most prolific fantasy and science fiction authors of his time. I believe the original Dying Earth novel came out in 1950, and you can see that a lot of what you find in Dungeons and Dragons and in Talislanta can be traced back to Jack Vance, but I'll be doing a review of this later, so, you know, if you're interested, stick around. On a side note as well, I said a prolific fantasy and science fiction author, very much like Paul Anderson. I was reading one of his books and discovered that he was also a science fiction author, and so I bought it, did the review. You can go and check that out on the channel of Paul Anderson's fantasy and science fiction kind of comparison. Jack Vance, once I found out he was a science fiction author, I also went ahead and purchased the Demon Princes series, Volume 1 and Volume 2. So I will be doing a review of those at some point in the future. But, as always, too many books, too little time. Let's get straight into Talislanta, the Savage Land. Now, I said Talislanta came out in 1986. There have been numerous editions of it. And the fantastic thing is, if you go to www.talislanta.com, you can actually download everything for free, which I've never even heard of. I've been kind of purchasing old RPG games off DriveThruRPG, but Talislanta, it's all out there if you want to know about it, if you want to get into the game, if you want to get into the rules and the world, whatever. Now, the Savage Land is very, very different in as much as you can consider this a prequel setting to the original Talislanta. So let's, first of all, the cover art on this book is just fucking gorgeous. I can't say enough about it. So we open it up. Our contents are the introduction, new rules, characters and tribes, skills, territories, bestiary, random encounters, which is fantastic, goods and equipment, and notable tribes. Now, this does not come with an introductory scenario, which, excuse me, I'm just getting my drinky poo. It doesn't come with an fuck me, that's hard to say. Introductory scenario. There you go. Fucking easy. Maybe had one too many of these before I started recording, but who gives a shit, right? This is YouTube. Doesn't come with an introductory scenario for a dungeon master to run. But I can assure you that with the world building that is contained within this book, it's so easy to kind of create your own adventure and run with it. I was blown away by the world building contained within this book. So, first of all, we have a map of Talislanta. Now, Talislanta, the Savage World, is vastly different to the first edition and so on of Talislanta, because this is after kind of that. Well, there's no magic in this. It's basically fantasy Mad Max without the vehicles, if you want to put it that way, which I initially was very skeptical of. I like my fantasy games with magic and, wizards and warlocks and paladins and clerics. And so I went into this initially with a very negative perspective, and yet this book has absolutely blown me away. So the introduction, what is Talislanta? I remember the ads for this in Dragon magazine, where it was basically, there were no elves, so it was straying away from the Lord of the Rings traditional Western fantasy. It intrigued me, but I never got into it because I was always a Dungeons and Dragons kid and very narrow-minded when it came to my role-playing games back in the day. Like, I look back on 10-year-old me reading fighting fantasy novels, the game books, sorry. Well, the novels, there was a series of fighting fantasy novels, which were pretty cool. So fighting fantasy, and then I move on to Dungeons and Dragons, and then I dabble in a little bit of Shadowrun because it's cyberpunk and futuristic, and I wasn't interested in any other game systems back then, and that was my problem, because the sheer amount of fantastic settings and systems that were out there at the time, and I just shut myself off to, because I thought, oh, Dungeons and Dragons is the one. It's the be-all and the end-all. And no, it's not. Dungeons and Dragons is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I fucking love that system. From first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons all the way up to 5th edition. Let's not talk about 4th edition, please. Even the old box sets. I've done the review of the Rules Cyclopedia. But it just goes to show you how closed off I was to the richness of tabletop role-playing games back in the day, like the 80s and 90s. And we're still getting fantastic games and fantastic systems and all that kind of stuff. But had I known about a lot of the old stuff, or had I opened myself up to buying new rule systems and exploring new game mechanics, I really hindered myself as a role player back in the day. And I'm not saying that that's everyone who just stuck with Dungeons and Dragons and didn't explore other things hindered themselves. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that for me personally, the older I get, the more I realize that I would have loved a rules light, setting heavy tabletop role playing game. I would have fucking loved it. It would have been brilliant. The group that I played with in high school, if you're watching this video, you all know who you are, you magnificent bastards. They would have loved it too. We played Dungeons and Dragons almost exclusively. We dabbled in a little bit of Shadowrun. People took turns running the games. It was a fucking fantastic group back in the day. When I kind of got a little bit older and was after my first university degree, and I was playing with a solid group for a good 3 or 4 years, we were almost exclusively Dungeons and Dragons. We dabbled in a little bit of Warhammer role-playing game, Werewolf, the Wild West, things like that. But yeah, it's just knowing this stuff now. I'm glad I do. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love reading these new rule systems, but it's just, it makes me sad to think that stupid young me overlooked this just because it wasn't what he expected or thought he wanted. So I'm sorry for that. What was that, like an 8-minute fucking rant there? But let's get back onto the book. Yeah, so it gives you the introduction to what is Talislanta. This is where I first learned about Jack Vance. It gives you the website to go to get all the free stuff, and I just went on there this morning. It's all still there, and it's all still fucking amazing. Now, it introduces the Savage Land. It takes place just a short time after the Great Disaster, which the inhabitants of the era refer to as the Fall. It's a book about survival in a hostile world ravaged by centuries of sorcerous warfare and a terrible disaster. A nightmarish version of the Dark Ages. Okay, epic campaign style, retro style gaming, and encounter tables. Now, it is basically a magic-less system or a magic-less world, but it doesn't say you have to exclusively not have magic, because these games are for everyone at the table. So if someone wants to play a wizard, if someone wants to play a cleric, you know, they're allowed to, provided the dungeon master is okay with it, of course. So it's not being exclusive, it's just saying this is the setting we're offering you, and I really appreciate that. So the new rules, we have Renown. As your characters do things, they kind of get well known, major and legendary characters. We have mass actions for running your tribe. If you're the chief of a tribe, then you can send them off to do stuff, which is kind of cool. Advantage and disadvantage, characters and mass actions, mass combat. If you've got two tribes fighting against one another. And some new diseases, blood fever, and corpse rot. That's all the new rules that come in this book. Like, very few of them. That is some good Jimmy Beam. Because, hey, focus. Come on, there we go. This book is primarily about the setting. So we have characters and tribes. Now, I really like this character creation thing. We have the character classes and what classes are limited. So it says the following classes can't be chosen: Bard, Cleric, Druid, Paladin, Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard. Why? They're all primarily magic-using classes. But, as I said, they don't tell you you can't have those characters. It's just suggestions. Barbarians can't take the path of the Totem Warrior. They can only take the path of the Berserker. The Eldritch Knight archetype can't be chosen for the Fighter, only Champion or Battlemaster. And the Monk, the Way of the Open Hand. Rangers can't cast spells, and the Arcane Trickster Rogue can't be chosen. So it's primarily going off what is in the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. There are a ton of new archetypes out there from all the different 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons settings. You can use them, you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. But it gives you the option of playing without classes, which is really cool. So you have your proficiencies, your advancement sheet here, going up to level 15, tells you what you can gain each level. I think that's a really interesting idea, where the players basically just pick their skills and feats and all that kind of stuff based on where they see themselves going, as opposed to pigeonholing them into a class system. It's just interesting to me, and I really kind of appreciated that. We have an alternate alignment system. Alignment in 5th edition: lawful good, lawful neutral, lawful evil, neutral good, true neutral, neutral evil, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, chaotic evil. And here is true believer, unbeliever, radical, amoral, neutral, or unaligned. Character backstories. And now we have the PC archetypes. You can kind of think of these as races, I guess. And there are a lot of them. Each one coming with a fantastic piece of art. We have the Draken, like dragon men. And you can see you have their traits here. So the Draken get +4 to both strength and constitution. Fire resistant, thick hide, natural weapons, massive and powerful build. And their backgrounds, like a Draken warrior poet or a Draken sage, that gives you starting proficiencies and equipment. So if you want to play a Draken, then you've got those choices. There is the Imazi, Kasir, so like desert nomads. The Narada, Reavers, the Shaka, like beastmen, Shan, kind of look like those dudes from Return of the King. The Vandar, Viragos, warrior women. The Warlocks, who are kind of like assassins that primarily hunt wizards. Yan. Now, after this comes a chapter that I thought was really cool. And this is basically if you want to play monstrous characters, or they call them NPC archetypes here. So you've got your lizard men, or the Azark, beast men, Bogling, Drudges, Drooks, Golgoths, Ra, Talosian, Thrax, Uma, Undermen, Witchmen, and then how to create a tribe, which I like this idea that your players are part of a tribe and they're struggling to survive in this harsh environment. So your tribe is like your party, but you can have more people in it, and then you can command those people to do stuff like henchmen or underlings. It's pretty cool. Then we have new skills and proficiencies. Superstitious magic. A look at the different territories of the world of Talislanta. All really cool. They do have kind of generic names, like the Fallen Ruins, the Quaglands, Old Sorcerer's Road. But you know what? You can forgive all of that just for the richness of the lore that comes in it. I mean, look at this. The River of the Dead, Poison Lands. Really, really cool. Then we have the Bestiary. Now, every great setting for role-playing has to have great adversaries for the characters to fight. This is true of any RPG setting. This one is awesome. First of all, the Bestiary comes with every creature has a painted picture like this. And they range from challenge rating 1/2 all the way up to the highest. It's just crazy cool. So we have the Andrak, the Armadunt, I don't know. Burden Beast, Desert Beast, War Beast, Behemoth, Bloodspawn, a Bottle Imp, it's creepy. Drak. Oh, hold on, we have the Colossus. Look at the art for the Colossus. That's just beautiful. Cryptworm. The demons, we have Chaos Demon, Earth Demon, Fire Imp, Ice Demon, Lava Demon, Mist Demon, Metal Demon, Pyro Demon, Sandstorm Demon, Smoke Demon, Stone Demon, Wood Demon. Just amazing. Then we have Spirits, Fetch. Just the art of these monsters is phenomenal. Some of the best art in a role-playing game supplement I've seen in a long, long time. Necrophage, Night Gaunt. You'll recognize some of these as monsters in Dungeons & Dragons. Tell me that doesn't look like an alien. Still cool though. Sand Dragon. Dune Much. Sandwich. Vermin, White Worm. Then we have flora, so different plants, where each plant has a picture, which I think is really cool. Then we have our random encounter tables. This is awesome. So if you don't know, like if you're designing an adventure or things are slowing down, just roll on a random encounter table and you never know what's going to happen. They go up to 100, so you roll percentage dice for most of them. And they give you an absolute ton of every area you can think of. Descriptions of different ruins. Then we come to the goods and equipment. This is cool because it gives you a lot of pictures to show you kind of what the equipment looks like, what the weapons and armor look like. Different carts. Cost, things like that. Always handy. Common steeds. You can actually get an iron scorpion or an iron dragon. I mean, come on. Primitive concoctions, different potions, different poisons, and other simple magic items that you can come across. And then you have notable tribes of the Savage Lands. If you want your players to come up against one of the different tribes that are roaming the place, you can. The open game license for Wizards of the Coast. And then your character sheets. Talislanta, the Savage Land, in my opinion, is a fantastic supplement. It offers a new take on the fantasy genre that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in, just because not only is it so different, but this book itself provides so many opportunities for a dungeon master to run a different sort of game that kind of taps into a different style of play. It allows the characters to... It allows the players to either create characters that kind of fit into the setting if you want that ease of play, or with the classless system to just kind of be open to whatever. And I think that's a really interesting kind of concept. So this is Talislanta, the Savage Land. I will put a link in the description below to the Talislanta website where you can download the early editions for free if you are interested in the game and the rules and whatnot. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Follow us on all the stuff you're going to see in the last slide here. But most importantly, stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.